Welcome back, my dear students. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic, that is perinatal asphyxia, both from practical point of view or academic point of view. Despite the important advances in perinatal care in the past decades, asphyxia remains a very severe condition leading to significant mortality and morbidity, especially in the developing countries. The term asphyxia is derived from the Greek and it means stopping of the pulse. Perinatal asphyxia is a condition characterized by an impairment of exchange of the respiratory gases, that is either oxygen or carbon dioxide, resulting in hypoxemia and hypercapnia accompanied by metabolic acidosis. So lack of oxygen is hypoxia and lack of perfusion is ischemia. Hypoxia is diminished amount of oxygen in the blood supply, while cerebral ischemia is defined as the diminished amount of blood perfusing the brain. Cerebral ischemia is the more important of the two forms of oxygen deprivation, but effect of hypoxia and ischemia are inseparable, and both these entities contribute to the tissue injury. Essential criteria for diagnosing a case of perinatal asphyxia. As such, there is no any leveled definite diagnostic criteria by any entity for the perinatal asphyxia. But American Academy of Pediatrics has given some guidelines to diagnose a case of perinatal asphyxia. For clinical samples or where laboratory markers or laboratory instruments like arterial blood gases are available, there prolonged metabolic or mixed acidemia, that is pH less than 7, or on an umbilical cord arterial blood sample. So if arterial blood gas analysis is possible and umbilical arterial blood sample shows a pH of less than 7, a value of less than 7, that it indicates or suggests perinatal asphyxia. On clinical point of view, if there is persistent of Apgar score of 0 to 3 for more than 5 minutes, it also supports perinatal asphyxia. On clinical ground, in the immediate neonatal period, if there is neurological manifestations like seizures, hypotonia, coma, or any symptom suggestive of hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy in the immediate neonatal period, then it also just suggests perinatal asphyxia. Or if there is any evidence of multi-organ system dysfunction like presence of acute renal failure or necrotizing enterocolitis or pulmonary hemorrhage or cerebral edema, or if there is DIC or thrombocytopenia. So, last slide was showing criteria for an institute. But if you are working at a peripheral center like primary healthcare center or additional PSC, and you have to resuscitate the baby or you have to level a baby as whether it is a case of perinatal asphyxia or not, how will you level? So criteria at community level or community setting is different and it is leveled by neonatal NNF of India. So asphyxia is absence of cry at 1 minute. Severe asphyxia is absence or inadequate breathing at 5 minutes. If Apgar score at 1 minute is 0 to 3, then we can label it as a severe asphyxia, or if it is 4 to 7, then we can label it as moderate asphyxia. So parental asphyxia incidence is very less in western scenario, that is 1 to 1.5, and it is almost 10 times in developing countries like India because of very poor antenatal care. Cause of parental death, parental asphyxia contributes almost 20% in western countries, whereas in India it contributes 26%. Parental asphyxia contributes to stillbirth or perinatal mortality in 50% of cases in Western scenario, whereas in India it contributes almost 59% cases. Etiology: 90% etiology is related to the intrapartum or antepartum period, whereas 10% during the postpartum period. In antenatal or antepartum period, placental insufficiency is the most common cause, and in postpartum period, the causes may be related to pulmonary, cardiovascular, or neurological insufficiency. So this slide is showing factors associated with the placental insufficiency. So suppose if there is decreased maternal oxygenation at pulmonary level due to any cause, then there will be decreased blood supply to the placenta, and then it turns lead to decreased blood flow to the fetus. There will be decreased gas exchange across placenta or fetal tissues, and eventually this leads to increased fetal oxygen demand, and it in turn it converted into a case of perinatal asphyxia. Pathophysiology. So in pathophysiology, body has a defense mechanism for hypoxia, and this defense mechanism is known as diving in reflex. In diving in reflex, what does body uh, the this defense mechanism acts as it modifies the tract of the blood away from the lungs, kidney, gut, and skin. That is, there is movement of blood away from the non-vital organs like lungs, kidney, gut to the more vital organs like brain, adrenals, and heart. And this is to save brain, mainly brain and heart. And this is called non-brain organ injury. Even if hypoxia persists, then what happens? Then there is shunting within the brain itself. In this shunting, anterior circulation suffers, whereas posterior circulation is maintained because of the circle of Willis circulation, and this causes cerebral cortical lesions. If there is near total asphyxia, as seen sometimes due to cord accidents like true knot of the cords or cord disruption or any cause leading to sudden maternal cardiopulmonary arrest, then this hypoxia is always abrupt and severe, and there is sudden cardiopulmonary arrest or sudden cord accident, so there is no time for compensation, and there is acute and very severe brain injury leading to involvement of thalamus and brain stem, but here generally cortex is spared. So, what are the common target organs of parental asphyxia? As there is decreased blood supply to the target organs, so there will be involvement as such. Kidney is the most common target organ involved in case of perinatal asphyxia, as much as 50%, followed by brain 28%, heart 25%, lungs 23%, and liver, bowel, and bone marrow in less than 5% of cases. Neuropathological changes. So neuropathological changes are different for the different age groups. Like in term babies, if there is involvement of the pyramidal tract in the form of selective neuronal necrosis, then it will eventually lead to spastic cerebral palsy. If this necrosis is related to the extrapyramidal tract, then it is called status marmoratus, and it leads to chorea, athetosis, and dystonia. Sometimes there is involvement of parasagittal cerebral injury, and this causes proximal spastic quadriparesis. Sometimes There is focal and multifocal ischemia of brain either in the left side or right side or involvement of the specific lobe of the brain leading to either hemiparesis or paraparesis or cognitive defects or refractory seizures. In case of preterm babies, there are many patterns, but the most common and most specific pattern of involvement is periventricular leukomalacia. So, in any complicated case, if you are going for the ultrasound cranium or MRI brain, and if there is evidence of periventricular leukomalacia, so it is a injury related to the prenatal asphyxia in case of preterm babies. So, brain is the one of the important part of the body which is involved in case of parental asphyxia, and the degree of involvement leads to the final outcome. Severe the involvement, poorer with the outcome. So, Leveni has classified hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, that is, the involvement of the brain in the perinatal asphyxia. This condition is called hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, and it has been categorized into three parts: mild, moderate, and severe. And we can diagnose it as clinically. So, if on the level of consciousness, if patient is or neonate is hyperactive or irritable, it suggests mild HIE. If neonate is lethargic, then moderate, and if it is comatose, then the HIE grade is severe. Tone: hypotonia, mild hypotonia in mild cases, marked in moderate cases, and severe in severe cases. Seizure is the most important clinical clue for diagnosing a case or categorizing a case as mild, moderate, or severe. So clinically, if you have not observed any case of seizure in a perinatal asphyxia, then it is a mild HIE. If there is seizure which can be controlled by 1 to 2 anticonvulsants, then it is called moderate HIE. But if seizures are refractory to multi and anticonvulsants, then the condition is called severe HIE. In case of reflexes like uh, sucking reflex or respiratory reflexes or rotting or Moro reflexes, if there is poor suck, then it is mild. Patient is absolutely unable to suck, not pushing tongue against your fingers, then it is moderate case. And in severe cases, patient generally, in most of the cases, patient is unable to sustain a spontaneous respiration, and you have to support the respiration either with a CPAP or mechanical ventilation. So, multi-organ dysfunction in perinatal asphyxia, different organ can manifest in different form in case of perinatal asphyxia, and this manifestation is related to the degree of the involvement or degree of the asphyxia. In case of CNS involvement, it can present as hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy or cerebral edema or late neurological sequelae like cerebral palsy. If the pulmonary system is involved, it can manifest as pulmonary hypertension, meconium aspiration, and surfactant disruption. Renal involvement is most common and is commonly manifest as increased level of serum creatinine and blood urea, that is acute renal failure. Metabolic disruption is almost always there in the form of hypoxemia, hypercarbia, metabolic acidosis, hypoglycemia, hypocalcemia, and hyponatremia. In GIT, there is necrotizing enterocolitis because of the very poor blood supply to the mesentery system to the gut. In severe cases or in late cases or complicated cases, there is hematological manifestations in the form of severe thrombocytopenia and DIC. Coming to the management. So, management in neonatology always carries a single direction oath, like that is TABC. So you have to manage a neonate always in the term of temperature, airway, breathing, and circulation. So you what damage it has been off the table. We have to prevent further brain damage by maintenance of temperature, perfusion, oxygenation, and ventilation. At the same time, you have to correct and maintain normal metabolic and acid base milieu of the body, and you have to manage the case very promptly, and you have to look for any complications. So supportive care, TAVC, and followed by FMF, MCF. T for temperature. How will you maintain temperature? In case of if you are working in an institute, you have to put the baby under radiant warmer at 36.5 degrees centigrade and manage accordingly. If open care warmer is not available, then you have to put the baby at any near any heat source like 100 or 200 watt bulb, or upon the skin or warm skin of the mother, or you can wrap the baby in a pre-heated linen. To maintain the airway, you have to slightly extend the neck of the baby. You have to wipe out all the secretions from the mouth followed by nose. For maintenance of breathing, you have to put oxygen either by the face mask or nasal prongs or nasal cannula. In severe cases, you have to put high frequency nasal cannula and CPAP and mechanical ventilation. For circulation, you have to look for the capillary refill time. If it is less than 3 seconds, it's okay, it's fine. If it is more than 3 seconds, then you have to give multiple boluses of the normal saline. If it is not improving, then you have to go for dopamine, dobutamine, and adrenaline depending upon the scenario and the availability. Then you have to start the fluid 10% dextrose in case of the common babies, and in case of extremely low birth weight babies you have to start 5% dextrose. You have to start medications depending upon what is the condition of seizure, or if there is any risk factors for the sepsis present, you have to start antibiotics. If patient is improving, then you have to start feeds either with the orogastric tube feeding or with cutlery spoon feeding, or if baby is improved, direct breastfeeding. You have to monitor the baby for any complications. You have to communicate with the parents regarding the future outcomes, and you have to follow up the baby for any complications. So summary of the initial management is, you have to first admit the baby in a newborn unit. You have to maintain temperature. You have to put the baby under radiant warmer at 36.5 degrees centigrade in servo control. Check vital signs like temperature, heart rate, respiratory rate, color, and capillary refill time. And if there is problem, you have to treat accordingly. Then you have to check hematocrit, blood sugar level. You have to go for the arterial blood gas analysis, and you have to look for the electrolyte. You have to put an IV line, and you have to start IV fluid depending upon the condition. If the CRT is less than 3 seconds, then you have to start with normal saline, and if it is more than 3 seconds, you have to start with the normal saline. If it is less than 3 seconds, you have to and blood sugar level is in the lower range, like less than 40 milligram, then you have to give 10% dextrose at the rate of 2 ml per kg. Here you can also consider volume expander and other drugs like vitamin K, stomach wash, and you have to monitor urine volume for any evidence of acute renal failure. Subsequent management in the form of oxygenation, either by simple nasal prongs or head box, and ventilation if required. Maintenance of adequate perfusion, normal glucose and calcium, normal hematocrit, and you have to treat seizures. So, how will you treat seizure? Either in case of perinatal asphyxia or seizure in a neonatal period due to any cause, you have to follow a simple algorithm. And in this algorithm, if any baby comes to you in an emergency department with features of seizure, then you have to ensure TABC, that is ensure temperature, airway, breathing and circulation. Then ensure IV access. Do a dextrosticks value, that is do a blood sugar. If the dextrosticks value is less than 40 milligram per deciliter, then you have to administer 10% dextrose at the rate of 2 ml per kg bolus, and then you have to give continuous infusion of 10% dextrose at the rate of 6 milligram per kg per minute, and through the infusion set. And in this cases, always remember to avoid hyperglycemia. But if the blood sugar is more than 40, then you have to go for the arterial blood gas analysis. If there is no availability of arterial blood gas analyzer, then you have to give simply 10% calcium gluconate at the rate of 2 ml per kg IV over 5 to 10 minutes with cardiac monitoring. Here is a catch point: if ionized calcium is less than 0.6 millimole per liter and seizure is persisting, and you have already repeat a dose of calcium gluconate, and even if the seizure is persisting, then you have to give 50% magnesium sulfate at a dose of 0.2 ml per kg IM. So there is a specific indication of magnesium sulfate. You don't have to give magnesium sulfate in each and every case. If you have to give magnesium sulfate in only one case, if there is documented hypocalcemia in a case of neonatal seizure and it is not improving in spite of repeated dose of calcium gluconate, then you have to give 50% magnesium sulfate. So even after all this management, seizure is persisting, then you have to give injection phenobarbital, that is the drug of choice for neonatal seizure at the rate of at the dose of 20 milligram per kg IV over 15 minutes. If seizure persists after 15 minutes, consider 10 milligram per kg boluses up to a total cumulative dose of 40 milligram per kg, and access seizure control at every 15 minutes. Even if the baby is not improving, then you have to give phosphonate or phenytoin at a dose of 20 milligram per kg, and you have to repeat the dose up to a maximum of 40. Assess the baby then again after 30 minutes. Even if the baby is not improving, then you have to consider alternate drugs like pyridoxine, folinic acid, continuous infusion of the midazolam drip or lignocaine, loading dose and then maintenance dose. You can also consider for topiramate in specific situations, and valproate infusion. So this is the guideline for the management of seizure, management of neonatal seizure due to any cause. Cerebral edema. Cerebral edema is generally a consequence of or a complication of perinatal asphyxia. And in these cases, you have to avoid fluid overload, and this fluid overload is generally due to SIADH. So fluid restriction should be there. Head and should be elevated to a degree of 30 degree. Maintain CO2 at a range of 25 to 30 mmHg in ventilated infants. Some role of mannitol and furosemide is dubious, and it is given at as a double-edged sword, and you have to decide, and your consultant have to decide whether mannitol has to be given or furosemide has to be given or not given. Generally, it is avoided in case of neonatal age group. Perfusion. So you have to, if the CRT or CFT is deranged, then you have to maintain the mean arterial pressure to maintain the cerebral blood flow. Maintenance of the cerebrovenous pressure at a range of 5 to 8 mmHg in term babies and 3 to 5 mm of Hg in the preterm babies. You have to avoid fluid, colloid and SBC boluses, and you have to replace volume very slowly. Supportive care, that is recent advancement. So there is as such there is no role of mannitol, steroid, and steroid in case of perinatal asphyxia. Hyperglycemia should be avoided because recent evidence shows that hyperglycemia, that is a blood sugar level of more than 150 milligram per deciliter within 12 hours of the birth, leads to a very poor prognosis and very poor outcome. So you have to avoid hyperglycemia. There is a definite role of regulatory genes called regulon, and gene experts are doing experiment in this field to get any drug which can regulate and modify this gene for a better outcome. Hypothermia. So in the recent advances, hypothermia is the most important part. Hypothermia is the lowering of the body temperature of neonate up to 30 or 32 degrees centigrade. This hypothermia can be in the form of whole body cooling or selective brain cooling. In developed and western countries, whole body hypothermia or selective head hypothermia or selective brain hypothermia is the treatment of choice nowadays. But in developing countries like ours in India, it is still in the experimental phase. Actually, it is not available even at the most of the apex centers. Pentoxifylline. So pentoxifylline has a role as a drug, and it has a role in minimizing the free radical injury. And pentoxifylline in association with the whole body cooling or whole body hypothermia has a very good outcome in case of severe perinatal asphyxiated patients. Newer targets are also towards the enhancement of the natural defense system, that is the promotion or in dose that increases the value of neutrophilic factor and fibroblast growth factor can manifest as a better outcome and better long term sequelae. So now, what are the factors which can lead to poor neurodevelopmental outcome? That is failure to establish respiration by 5 minutes, Apgar 3 or less than 3 in 5 minutes, onset of seizure within 12 hours of the life, refractory if the conversion is refractory and it is continuous in spite of use of multiple anticonvulsants, if the patient is already in the stage of HIE stage 3, if there is inability to establish oral feeds beyond the 1 week of life, if there is abnormal EEG and failure to normalize by 1 week of time, if there is abnormal CT finding, MRI finding, or MRI spectroscopy finding in the neonatal period, all these criteria lead to the poorer neurodevelopmental outcome. So, it is a very important topic, and you have to move with at least with the GAI, go with the treatment protocol or AIMS guideline for NICU management, perinatal asphyxia, and if possible, go through the Nelson's textbook of pediatrics. So thank you very much. Next time in next online class, we will come with the new topic, a very important topic. Thank you. Bye. Take care.